time she caught me dressing up in nylons was really infuriating. But it's enhanced their relationships. Well, that's an interesting question, and there's a common misconception that case officers, or anyone with a covert position in the CIA or elsewhere in the U.S. government, and I'm sure this is true in other overseas organizations too, there's a common misperception that you have to keep it secret even from your wife and other members of your family. And if you think about it, that would not make any sense, because you have to live a covered position. And if your wife is also, or your spouse is also in the dark, it's going to make living your cover much more difficult. Whereas if your spouse knows what you do and is privy, then he or she can help you live your cover for you when necessary, whatever. So it would, when I was in the CIA, this is a lot of years ago, maybe they've changed the guidelines since then, but they said, we're not going to tell you what to do one way or the other. Generally speaking, you want to use your common sense, and we strongly recommend that at a minimum your wife knows exactly what you're doing.
I suppose
for the reasons I just said.
It depends on your wife somewhat. I mean, there are some women who'd say, you would not believe what my husband's doing today. He says he's going to the office, but really he's going to kill 4 men.
Yeah, you know, when they start boasting about you that way, it's always a problem. But, yeah, and well, you know, it's interesting too. I wouldn't say that any of this ever infected me. I mean, I was only there for 3 years and I really didn't do very much. But deception can become a way of life, and this is something I deal with in my books. It's interesting. It's not difficult to start crossing the line between the things you're licensed to do as a professional in the service of your country and the things that you might start doing just for yourself. And we see this all over. We see it in the country all the time. I mean, if you look at, I don't want to go all political on you. If you like, though, go to my blog and I'll go political on you there. But look at it this way. And this is not confined, clearly not confined to Republicans or Democrats. It crosses parties. The state secrets privilege. This is where an administration tries to get something, either individual pieces of evidence or an entire case, thrown out of court because there's some secret information that the government says we don't want revealed. And there are legitimate uses for this privilege. There's no doubt. It's been around since the time of Thomas Jefferson. But we also know that often men in power will use the state secrets privilege not out of a desire to protect national security, but out of a desire to protect their own reputations, to save themselves from embarrassment. And it interests me because I'm creating villains all the time, right? I don't see these as Fu Manchu types. They're normal people, but over time they get used to invoking these things, initially for good reasons, and then they start to get a little confused about where national security ends and their own reputations begin. I don't think they look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm doing this cynically to protect my reputation. They just lose the ability to distinguish. Likewise, deception. You start lying to people all the time because you have to. You're living a cover, and then that starts to bleed off into your other life. It's not an easy. A friend of mine, whose father was in the OSS, and my friend who served the U.S. Army Special Forces, his father taught him something that I think is worth mulling over. He said, "Gentlemen don't lie, but they may deceive." And this is a dangerous thing to say because it's subject to abuse. Yeah. But at the same time, I think you can see what he's getting at. And anyway, I try to bring these themes out